I've been um, traveling with the I Ching for most of my life, and it's been really inspirational to me. And so when I found the Gene Keys uh, community and the Dream Arc community, I was like, oh gosh, this is bringing something of such interest to me into a community, into a contemplation, into a calendar, and into a whole journey that really ties together my inner experience with the outer experience, the collective shared experience. And so one way that that happens is through the calendar. So the Gene Keys calendar goes through these keys. Every 6 days, there's a new key that is lit up by the light of the sun. And we call this the pulse, the daily pulse or weekly pulse. And that looks like a little chaotic or random sometimes. Like it goes from the 46 to the 18 to the 48 to the 57 where we are today. So if you look at the numbers, it can look random. But what those are is if you look at the energies, these 8 fundamental energies, it's earth over wind, and then mountain over wind, and then water over wind, and then wind over wind. And so then you get to see, oh, it's not this random number of how do we get from 46 to 18 to 48. It's this progression and movement of energies, and the energy grows from heaven or from earth, and it rises up to heaven. And so each time that we move into a new key, it goes from earth to mountain to water to wind to thunder to fire to lake to heaven. And then the cycle repeats. And so it's this really beautiful and simple notion that kind of brings clarity to some of the potential complexities or confusion of why the numbers are the way they are. And so for me, it's been really beautiful to really contemplate the simplicity in all of these things. When it gets complex, to just really return to these energies. And so just a few hours ago, the sun moved into the 57th gene key, which is the energy of wind over wind. And so every season there are these keys that are the double energies. So wind over wind is this, it's the purity of the wind. It's also the expansion of the wind. It's wind within wind within wind. It feels like a fractal to me. And so it's this very pure wind energy that is alive. And so what I like to do is look at this whole season. So for 8 weeks, we'll be in this wind. So then in some ways, this is the wind season. And so that will be the fundamental energy of all of the keys that we move through in the I Ching calendar, or the Gene Keys calendar. And so what the wind is it's normally known as the gentle wind. And so there's this notion of the gentle breeze that blows in, and it's invisible. That's one of my favorite things that I feel and see about the wind, is that it can't be seen. It's literally invisible. What we see are maybe the trees blowing or debris being caught in the wind, but we don't actually see the wind. And so there's this very invisible or sometimes mystical experience with the wind. We only see the effects of the wind. We can't actually see it, but we feel it. We know it's there. The feeling of either a cool breeze on a warm day that just comes, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, thank goodness it's breaking up the heat. Or the opposite, that chill wind that comes through in the fall. Just yesterday we had snow for the first time in the high mountains, and so the winds of change seem to be bringing in the cold weather as well here. And there's just this really tangible shift that happens sometimes when it's a nice warm day, and then all of a sudden a sharp Arctic breeze comes through or something like that. And so again, it can't necessarily be seen. We may be able to see signs of it in the clouds, like Matthew was saying, these like storm clouds that gather on the horizon. But in some ways, that's even a different element. That's the thunder element oftentimes. And so the wind is this really always moving, always changing, invisible and sort of mystical force. And because it's unseen, it's often connected to the spirit and this notion of life and the invisible. And so there can be this deeply sort of mystical experience that happens there. But it's also connected to our breath. As within, so without, as above, so below. As the winds blow and bring things, it's connected to our own inspiration and the breath that comes, keeps us moving and changing and alive. So, there's a very powerful connection to the ability to keep our breath gentle and moving smoothly. And so, there's this beautiful kind of steady wind that is the real focus of the energy that I love, because the model is that if you think about wind gusts that come from one way or the other, like they might be sharp or harsh or like get your attention, but they aren't as effective as a steady breeze that just comes and it just stays and stays and stays. And this steady breeze is how real change is made in the world. It's how, a butterfly can allegedly flap its wings and get a little breath of air, but it's that steady, persistent, and gentle wind that grows and goes over the ocean and creates waves. And eventually, the fantasy is that a butterfly can flap its wings, and on the other side of the world, there's like a tsunami or this like huge force. And the only way that that happens is through the persistence, always building the steady and gentle wind. Can really turn the tides and change the force. But a stronger breeze that comes through momentarily isn't as powerful, or it's not as effective. And so there's this really deep beauty in really trusting in every breath matters. Every small moment, every unseen detail matters. But to do it with care, with gentleness, but also persistence and steadiness. To really stay with that gentle energy has unbelievable transformative effects. And so that's a task for us for the next, for the past 3 weeks and the next 4 weeks of this whole season, leading us up to Halloween or All Hallows Eve. And so this then will change the season into another elemental season. And so there's this great opportunity to really tap into what it is that we are really, what is the goal that we're feeling, what is the way that we want the energy to move and to change, and to not force it all at once, to not grab it. Can you grab the wind? Can you force the wind to do anything? No, you can't, but can you take a deep breath? Can you reorient your direction? Can you deeply become in tune with the direction that you want and the target that you're aiming for, and then breathe into that and stay consistent. Return to that intention days, daily, many times a day, and then every week, and then every month. And before long, what seems like this gentle, invisible breeze is actually allowing you to step into those winds of change. And who knows what can happen when really trusting in that subtle, invisible, hidden, and very delicate kind of breeze when it's done consistently. And so this is sort of the energy that's really ripened right now with wind over wind. And in the Gene Keys, this is, the shadow of unease. Oftentimes when the winds of change come in, it makes us uneasy. Like it's unsettling. We used to live up in the mountains, and when the wind would blow through the house and everything's shaking, it's hard to just be at peace. Being woken up by the wind is a very unsettling experience. It's very opposite of that gentle breeze, of a cool breeze on your face. It's like this uneasy thing. So everything has its shadow nature, and in that shadow nature of the unease, it's quite unsettling. It's unknowing, where is this breeze coming from and where is it going? I don't know. There's this mystery and magic that's part of this, and in the shadow it's quite unsettling or uneasy. And yet what this does is it taps us into our intuition. This is the energy of intuition or inspiration. It's like this breath of the universe, and it's knowing where, like tapping into where exactly is this going? Where is it leading? And like, can I listen to the wind? Can I listen to the unseen, to the invisible? And what it does is it brings us into clarity, the city of clarity, and really coming crystal clear with that ultimately subtle and refined energy of the cosmos, and kind of coming into union with that. And so what a beautiful journey and opportunity, and yet it's quite challenging. I know when change is afoot, and change seems to be afoot in the whole cosmos right now, or at least on this planet, there just seems to be a lot of winds of change. When I resist those, or when I don't listen, or when I allow the fear, it's uneasy. It takes my sleep, it takes my peace. I'm unsure of the future. But when I really tap into that lower, deeper and more subtle sacred core inside, I can feel and get an intuition for where this is leading us. All of this potential negative or bad or change, it all can serve if I have that clarity to really see where things are moving. And so this is the opportunity this week, but it's beautiful because every week it changes and it shifts. So last week was water over wind, which has a very different energy than thunder over wind or lake over wind. And so there's all of these beautiful opportunities to feel these subtle shifts of energy that are available with all of these keys. And so it's been a huge part of my contemplation to really bring things alive. I'll pass back to you in a moment, Matthew. But just one last thing I'd love to bring in while we're talking about this wind is, in the I Ching, wind is also known as wood. And so it's like the image of a little sprout, and this notion of something growing, or a tree and its roots growing around. And so it kind of has that similar energy of this vital energy of life that I think of in the breeze. That I like to think of it like a rock is growing on a mountain, and a tree starts growing into the rock. And does it end here and it stops? No, it just gently and persistently weaves right around that rock, and then and it continues and it grows, and there's this like kind of pluckiness of life to adapt and to change, and to allow the winds of change to move it and to shift. And so there's this very vital nature of the wind and the wood that continues to grow through all obstacles. Just like you can't stop the wind, you can't stop like weeds and roots and shoots from growing through even the pavement, or these limitations. And so in many ways it's another energy that's quite beautiful to look at, with the that that irrepressibility of life. And it doesn't grow fast. It's not like growing up like crazy, because then it's not rooted and it's not stable. It's that slow and steady yet persistentness of life that really removes all obstacles, bends, twists, turns, and changes, and moves ever towards the sun and the light, and growing larger while also rooting more deeply and firmly into the earth. And so those are some of the beautiful elements and metaphors that I love from the I Ching.